Hello everyone, this is part 18 of What If Naruto Was Adopted by Kakashi, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Naruto was very nervous. He hadn't been this nervous since his first day at school. Today was his first real date, and with Hinata no less. He had to admit that before he never would have thought he would try to date his oldest and best friend, but lately his views on her had changed. He saw that she was a pretty girl that he knew very well and who he liked being around. But right now he was worried since he had never actually gone on a date before. From his dad's books he knew how to flirt and a few other things to do with girls, but dating was never actually in those books. If he ever found that guy that wrote those books, he was going to have to tell him to add in things like that. Thinking about the parts of the books that the male and female characters did together made Naruto think of Hinata and himself in those places. He blushed as the thought of the feel of her skin or how her lips tasted ran through his mind. It didn't help that he now knew she had been the girl he had seen naked on the water that one night. He wouldn't say he knew that, at least not any time soon, as he wanted to make this work. At any rate, he just hoped that the ideas he got from his dad yesterday worked. After Hinata had said yes to the date, he had gone home and waited for his dad to show up and ask him the kinds of things that he could do on a date. Kakashi had asked him who the lucky girl was, and Naruto had to admit he asked Hinata out. He was wondering why Kakashi didn't show any surprise at that. Anyways, Kakashi soon told his son a few examples of what to do on a date, and with that he made his own plans. It would be later that night, and all Naruto knew was that Kakashi was going out. It wasn't like he wanted to hide things from his son, it was just that Naruto seemed to have enough on his mind anyway. Across the village, Hinata was more nervous than she could ever remember being. She had spent all morning trying to figure out what to wear for her first ever date and what she should do during it. She sighed at the fact she didn't have much in the way of clothing for dates. She should have to go to her friends for help soon as well after this date for more advice. Plus Ino and Sakura were good with fashion, so they could help her pick out new clothing, but right now she was worried with what she just had. She didn't want to look too fancy if they were going to a normal place like the ramen bar, but she didn't want to wear her usual clothing in case they went somewhere special. She also had to take in the heat that was still around, and after a lot of debating she went with her choice. Mainly it was a skirt she wore in the summer months, but it was warm enough for it. Also she wore a short sleeve shirt and one of her jackets. This jacket was less bulky than her normal one as the arms were gone. At this time she wished her mother was still alive. At this point, she really could have used her advice for this. She looked at the picture she had of her mother that she always kept in sight. Hinata picked it up and looked at her mother. She still remembered her as a beautiful woman that was always kind. Her heart ached for her mother's touch just once more, but she knew that wasn't possible. As she continued to get ready, her date was unknowingly to her, coming to the front gate. Naruto had already managed to get into the Hyuga compound without trouble as usual. A branch family member was already making his way to inform Hinata that Naruto was here to see her while he waited. He wasn't sure if Hinata was ready, so he was glad for the wait. He was waiting out in the open just outside the main household. Unfortunately, it was just his luck that Neji happened to wander near him. He saw the familiar masked blonde, but he took note of the clothing he was wearing. It was different than his normal clothing and had to wonder what was going on. He walked up behind Naruto, who was so focused that he didn't hear Neji. "Naruto, I wasn't aware you would be showing up today," Neji said to him, and took a bit of pleasure at how the blonde had jumped from being startled. "Damn it, don't sneak up on me like that," Naruto shouted at him. "My apologies," he said, although on the inside he was smiling. A little payback now and then against the blonde boy was very enjoyable. "At any rate, are you visiting Hinata-sama this day?" Naruto looked a bit nervous at this. He had hoped not to run into anyone like Neji, or worse, Hinata's father. He could lie, but Hinata would show up pretty soon and he would find out eventually, and then Neji really might be pissed that he had lied to him. "Well, the thing is, I got a date with Hinata-chan right now," Naruto said, nervously scratching the back of his head. Neji blinked a few times, not sure he had heard right. He knew that Hinata had feelings for him. Hell, most of the village most likely knew, but he never really thought that Naruto would ask her out. First off was that as a main branch member and heir, Hinata would be expected to be courted by other members of the main house, and Naruto being an outsider would complicate things. But then again, Hinata would be happy and Neji did care about his cousin's happiness. That being said, he walked right up to Naruto's face as the masked ninja looked up in surprise at the taller boy. Naruto, because I know you and because of Hinata's feelings I should warn you, Neji told him in a voice that had a hidden threat to it. You will treat Hinata-sama well on this, but if you ever hurt her then you will have to deal with me. Naruto gulped and nodded. He knew the kind of damage Neji could do with his gentle fist style, and although he always wanted a match with him, the kind of look he was giving Naruto at the moment made him rethink that, as he didn't want to have to fight Neji when he was really pissed. Neji pulled back a bit. On the other hand, I do wish you both well. Naruto was surprised when the boy walked off, but then the older boy stopped. Also, I hope you stop flirting with other girls as well. Oh yeah, no problem, Naruto told him. Neji smirked, although Naruto couldn't see it. Now it meant that Neji didn't have to listen to Naruto flirting with Tenten anymore. It really bothered him when Naruto did that, even if he never admitted to the real reasons behind it. But Hinata had been aching for this, so he wouldn't do anything to interfere with it, for now at least. Naruto's sweat dropped as he watched Neji leave. If this was the kind of thing he could expect from Hinata's cousin, he dreaded when Hinata's father found out. It was 5 minutes of waiting before he looked up to see Hinata making her way towards him. He looked at her clothing and was glad she wasn't too dressed up. He wanted this to be a nice simple date, as he didn't have enough time to really plan things out. Hello Naruto-kun. Hinata blushed a bit as usual. Hey Hinata-chan, you look nice. He smiled at her and noticed the blush increase a bit. Now that he figured out why she blushed, he had to admit she looked really cute blushing like this. Well then, want to start things off? Hinata nodded as she quickly walked up next to him as they made their way out of the compound. Little did they know that they weren't alone, as in the bushes 4 pairs of eyes locked onto them. Hanabi had gone over to Konohamaru's home and told him the news, and he had suggested that they spy on them and see how things went. Hanabi liked the idea and they had been waiting for Naruto to show up. As soon as Hanabi saw them get enough of a head start, they both snuck quietly as they could behind them. The 2 young teens walked and talked. Well, Naruto mostly talked as Hinata listened as usual. It wasn't really any different than they normally hung out, but instead of the ramen stand for lunch, he took her to a nice outdoor place. It had a nice view of the park, as well as she had fond memories of that park. That's where we first met, Naruto said, looking out to a spot in the park. I remember you hiding behind your mom when you first saw me. And Naruto-kun, Hinata said, embarrassed because of that, although it was a happy memory for her the day she met her first friend. Remember that spot we used to play hide and seek by the bushes? He asked her and she nodded. We got so dirty that one time both our parents had to take us home to get a bath. Hinata giggled at that memory. She had never come home in such a sorry state before, and she had thought her mother was going to be made, but she had this small smile on the entire time. Those were happy times, Hinata said softly. Naruto nodded. After he met Hinata, his life had gotten a lot more happier. Yeah, I'm not sure if I ever said this, but I'm glad we met, Hinata-chan. Hinata blushed as she smiled. I'm glad we met as well. Across the street, Hanabi and Konohamaru were spying on them. I wish I would hear what they're saying. Konohamaru sulked. Maybe if we got closer. With what they would see us. She told him. I got my ninja covering sheet, we can blend into the background. He smiled, pulling the sheet that had the look of a wood paneling on it but in the wrong direction. Hanabi gave him a look that said all at that. What? He asked. You really need to work on your ninja gear, Hanabi said, turning back to the date. What's that supposed to mean? He whined. Naruto and Hinata continued on with the date. After the lunch they walked around the park as they smiled at all the old memories this place held for them. They hadn't been here in a long time together and it was nice. They saw a performer using puppets to tell the story of the first Hokage in the Valley of the End against Madara Uchiha. Both of them stopped to watch it as it was pretty fun and the kids around were cheering for the first. Naruto and Hinata walked on. They stopped for ice cream as they sat down in a bench to eat. Hinata giggled as she saw the bit on his nose. It looked strange to see the white substance on his black mask. Then Naruto looked cross-eyed at it and Hinata couldn't stop the laugh. He looked so cute and funny like that. Naruto grinned and took a bit of his own ice cream and placed a bit on her own nose. Hinata was surprised, but seeing the smiling face she lose it and both ended up laughing again. Nearby Hanabi and Konohamaru were both puzzled by this. Was putting ice cream on each other's face normal on a date? Both kids had no idea, but they continued to watch on. By the end of the date, Naruto was walking Hinata home when he stopped her before they got in sight of the gates. He didn't want the gate guards to see what he hoped to do at this moment. He had been thinking of this for the last hour and it was now or never for him. Hey Hinata-chan, today was really fun with you. Naruto told her. I liked it too, Naruto-kun. Hinata smiled at him. It had in fact been the best day of her life. She had finally gone on a date with her long-time crush. Naruto nervously scratched the back of his head. Yeah, so you are, well that is, you want to go out again. Hinata blushed at the thought but nodded her head. One date was more than she had ever thought, but now he wanted another date. Great, and this will be a great one, I just need to get it ready. Naruto had to plan out what he wanted to do next, but he couldn't wait. The date with Hinata had been so fun and he found out that he really liked to hang out with her more than just a friend. He mentally cursed himself for not seeing Hinata as the cute girl he was looking at before now. There's one more thing I've wanted to give to you. I wanted this to be a special date, but I wasn't sure how to do it. But I think I came up with something, he told her as she wondered what he had in mind. Then to her surprise he pulled down his mask and she could see that cute face with the whisker marks on them. She always thought the marks made him look so cute and always wanted to touch the marks. Then she blushed as he started to lean in closer to her as her eyes widened and her pulse rate went up. He's not going to do what I think he's going to do, is he? Hinata thought as he moved in, although she secretly hoped he was. Naruto had thought about what to give her, and although they had done it before, that had been an accident. This time he wanted to make sure of his feelings for her. It was very forward of him, but then again tact was never his strong point anyway. He learned in slowly to give her a chance to push him away, but she never did. His face came to hers and lightly he kissed her lips. It was a bit of a chase kiss, but to the both of them they felt something there. Hinata willed herself with all her might not to feign she wanted this so much. She closed her eyes as she leaned in slightly and pressed her own lips to his. Naruto was surprised at how soft her lips were, and soon one of his hands found hers as they stayed like that for a minute before he pulled back. Both young ninja were blushing furiously. So I'll see you later, Hinata-chan, Naruto said as he pulled up his mask and walked off. Hinata nodded but couldn't say anything as she walked up in a daze. Naruto had just kissed her, a real kiss on the lips. For Hinata, if this was all just a dream, she didn't ever want to wake up. In a tree, two young kids had watched the whole thing. Did they just kiss? Hanabi asked, cringing at that. Yeah, Konohamaru said with an equal disgusted face. I don't see why older kids and adults do that. Hanabi nodded. Sure, it was fun seeing her sister dating Naruto and she did like him, but she didn't want to see her older sister kissing boys. Well, I think the show's over, Konohamaru sighed. Want to see if Mogi and Udon are doing anything. Hanabi shrugged. It was better than nothing, although she wondered why her sister got that strange look on her face. Was kissing boys really that good? She didn't think so. Besides, it's not like she would ever be caught kissing a boy. Later that evening, Kakashi was getting ready for his own date. Mainly he had on black pants with a matching shirt. He was wearing a special mask that didn't go as far down his neck as his normal one. The light shirt was buttoned up with the top two undone. Instead of his forehead protector, he had on a simple eye patch to cover his Sharingan eye. He didn't get to wear that a lot and had spent nearly 20 minutes trying to find the damn thing because he couldn't remember where he had put it. When Naruto got home from his date, he had to smile at the look on his son's face. The boy not only had a great time but seemed to be falling for the young Hyuga girl. All he had done was talk about Hinata and things like how cute she looked at this point and that point. Naruto was in his room when the doorbell sounded. He got up and opened to the door, and there was standing Anko. First thing he noticed as her new look, a skirt that went down to her knees but with a slit in it, long black boots that went up high on her legs as well. A studded belt and a dark t-shirt on as well. He also noticed the purple lipstick and matching light eyeshadow wore. She also had on that large smile of hers. Nice, so this is what you look outside of ninja gear, she said to him, although a little disappointed he had on the mask. You going pirate on us because I think to a ninja that is a cardinal sin. I figured the headband was a bit much, besides I think it gives me a cool look, Kakashi replied back, smirking. Well then let's each because I'm starving. Anko grabbed his arm and pulled him quickly away so fast he nearly didn't get to close his door. They made their way through the village to stop off at a decent place for a meal. It was nice to go out like regular people now and then. Anko and Kakashi to relax and talk about things. She noticed that he could eat with that damn mask up, but then again she had seen the great mystery that was behind that mask, and honestly there were enough women who thought him interesting. There was no need to gain any more competition from showing the women everywhere the face under that mask. Dinner proved to be entertaining as Kakashi told her about the wave mission in detail, and Anko had to admit she wished she had been there for it. It sounded kind of exciting, and it had been a lot more exciting than the last couple of missions she had. They continued to talk. It was a very comfortable dinner, and Anko and Kakashi both played a few games with their conversations. Sometimes a little innuendo was thrown in or teasing the other lightly. The meal was pretty good too, and Anko made a mental note of the place. After that, the two of them left to go out walking. It was night by the time they left, and they had no real destination in mind. They were both just very comfortable with each other at the moment that they didn't really care. Oh, I heard of this from some of the others, Anko said as her eyes lit up. She was looking at a bar that they were passing. It's a great hangout after work and it's open late, plus I hear the drinks aren't so bad and aren't watered down. Kakashi thought about it and figured they should give it a try. As they entered, the place had some low lighting, and there seemed to be a main level and another that was slightly higher up off the ground. The higher area had tables and booths and looked to be for small meals, and drinking were done. There was a bar at the end of the place against the wall. Kakashi also noticed there were also a few gaming tables. Mainly pool, it would seem. On the walls he noticed target boards. A couple looked like it was for darts, but two others were slightly larger without the metal framework. He noticed kunai and shuriken in holders near it. It was a variation on the game of darts, only this was more suited for ninja or those that pretended to be at least. Come on, let's get a drink and then we can have some fun, Anko smirked at him. After getting a bottle of sake with a couple of drinking glasses, they started off with the pool table. Kakashi and Anko were both very competitive people, although Anko was more of a sore loser when she lost the first game. She also had to admit that with his one eye covered, Kakashi really compensated well for no depth perception. At one point Anko had a very tough shot and wasn't sure how to get it. She tried to lay on the table to get a better shot off. You want some help? Kakashi asked, seeing her trying to get a very tough shot. She had to bank a ball off the side, while avoiding one of his balls at first and then another to get at one of her balls on the table. Sure, Anko said as she was focused on the task at hand, but when she felt his body press up against her ass and back, her concentration faltered a bit. She smirked at how he had played her position on the table to his advantage. She made a mental note to try the same thing back. Kakashi helped her to line up the shot, and he couldn't help but take a smell of her hair. Whatever perfume she was wearing wasn't too strong, but it was an alluring scent. Anko smirked as she caught him taking a smell. She had borrowed this perfume from Kurenai before the date. Although it did some with a price, Kurenai made her swear to tell the whole story after it was over. After a bit, Anko decided on a drinking game. Every shot missed you had to take a drink, but since they were a bit too good after a game, it was moved to a drink for every shot. That made the games a bit more interesting. It was later that night when Kakashi and Anko were walking home. Well, at least he was. She was walking the edge of a small ledge, balancing herself. You know, being drunk, I wouldn't do that if I were you. You're going to fall, Kakashi said to her, although he was feeling the buzz as well. I'm not drunk, Anko told him as she continued on with her balancing act. It's only a 3-foot-tall wall anyway, and if I was drunk I would have fallen just by walking. Okay then, you're trashed, not drunk. Ah, Anko smirked. If I was trashed then I wouldn't be able to move or speak. There are subtle levels to drinking, and where was I? Anko lost her train of thought. Something about levels of drinking, Kakashi said, although he wasn't too sure himself. He had been too busy staring at her legs and ass as they were pretty much at eye level. Oh right, Anko started up again. Drunk is that you had a good time, trashed is going on a binge, wasted is that you're passed out cold, buzzed is only after a couple of drinks. So I'm somewhere just after buzzed. To prove her point, she jumped off the small wall with a slight flip and landed. She had a little stumble, but she didn't fall down as she caught herself quickly. Kakashi had to admit she had great balance to pull that off after a few drinks. He stared to give a light applause, and she gave a theatrical bow to him, grinning. Although she didn't want to try that again, her head was starting to swim from the slip and the bow all of a sudden. This was one of the things that Kakashi had grown to like about Anko over the years. She knew how to have fun and cut loose. Kakashi remembered how he used to have been before Obito's death and had tried to change him into something that was totally different. He took time to appreciate things more and got more laid back, and he had to admit his life was a little less stressful now because of it. If he hadn't changed his ways, he most likely would have had an ulcer by now. They continued on walking and talking and laughing all the way to his place. He hadn't intended to go this way, but Anko's home was on the way at any rate. Kakashi looked at his home and noticed all the lights out and figured Naruto was fast asleep by now. Anko had noticed it as well and she frowned a bit. She was enjoying herself and wanted things to go on. Hey, I thought the man was supposed to escort his date to her place. Anko gave a mock pout. Kakashi chuckled as they scratched the back of his head. Sorry about that. Well, it is getting late and you can crash here if you want. She had to admit that her feet were starting to hurt after the dancing and walking around, and her place just seemed too far away at the moment. She could crash here and get back to her place in the morning. It wasn't like she had anything important in the morning and she could take her time. Sure thing. She smiled as he led the way to her place. They went up to the front door and Kakashi tested it and found it locked. Most likely Naruto had locked up before bed like Kakashi had taught him. He pulled out his key and unlocked the door as he looked to Anko. You know, tonight was fun. Kakashi told her. Anko smiled up at the tall man. Yeah, it was. So, you want to do this again? She could feel a blush on her cheeks and was glad for the dark. She also hated how she sounded like some shy teen girl asking her secret crush out, and she hated how it had sounded. Where was the always confident Anko? Kakashi smiled down at her. You know, I'd like that. Well, I really enjoy my time with you. Really? Anko asked, happy to hear that, and saw him nod his head. She smiled and she wanted to do something that she had been wanting to do for a very long time now. She gently reached up to his mask and pulled it down. She nearly sucked in a breath as she saw that handsome face again. God, he really was a perfect-looking man to her. Even the iron scar only seemed to enhance it. Kakashi wasn't sure what she was doing but didn't fight it. He was too busy looking into her eyes from the light of the doorway to really care. She really did have nice eyes. They held such mischief and life to them, he had noticed. Anko looked up at the handsome face and she couldn't help it, as she put her arms around his neck, then pulled him down and kissed him. Kakashi was a bit surprised by the move, but the taste of her lips soon made him forget his surprise and kiss her back. At first it was gentle, but soon Anko pressed a bit harder into it and Kakashi was more than willing to help out. Soon the two of them were lost in the passion of it all. The mutual attraction they held for each other lately had been building all night long. Also, the primal need for companionship was also there. Both of them had been without that need. For Anko, she had never really opened up before, but with Kakashi she felt she could do it. With Kakashi he had been so focused on raising Naruto he hadn't the time to really find a real relationship. But Anko liked his son and Naruto liked her as well, which had been a major problem as anyone he chose had to get along with Naruto or else there was no point to it all. But there was also the fact that both of them felt comfortable with the other. Each of them had their own pains of their past that left ugly scars, and yet each of them felt the other wouldn't judge or care. Anko felt Kakashi run his tongue along her lips as she opened her mouth, and soon his tongue was propping her mouth. She moaned, feeling his hands on her hips, and maybe it was a bit of the alcohol in her system, or the fact that Kakashi was a very good kisser, but she didn't want to stop. She ran her hands down from his neck to the front of his shirt. Eventually they had to break for air, both of them taking deep breaths, but also both of them wanting more. Neither of them could remember the last time they had ever had a kiss like that. It had been so intense and passionate. So, are you going to invite me in? Anko asked him, a little worried she might be a bit too forward. Kakashi wasn't sure to end it there or continue on, and he knew where it would go if they continued. There would be no going back at this point, but he wanted her. He was surprised by how much he wanted her. It had been so very long since he had ever felt anything close to this, and he was still human after all. He opened the door and gently pulled her in without a word. Anko smiled as she kicked the door shut behind her as she nearly jumped onto Kakashi, locking her lips with his again. Kakashi wasn't sure how, but eventually they made it to his bedroom without much noise. The last thing he needed was to wake Naruto up and for him to see this. Anko felt exhilarated and even a bit anxious. She didn't expect the date to end this way, but she would be lying if she said she never thought about this lately. Anko, Kakashi said between kisses, are you sure about this? Anko knew that he was giving her a way out, but she didn't want to take it. They were both adults and she knew if they did this things would change between them. But this date had shown her that she wanted things to change. She really did like him, and why put off something that would happen eventually? Life was short enough when you were a ninja, and who knew what the future would bring? Yes, she said in a husky tone as she nibbled on his earlobe, making him shudder. No regrets. She then asked him. Kakashi knew what she meant, that they both would have no regrets the next morning. No regrets. With that, both of them started to strip the other of their clothing. Hands and lips explored each other's bodies. Anko gave a pleasured laugh of a woman that promised a night of pleasure as both adults went to his bed to explore a new opening in their relationship together. The first thing that Kakashi noticed was that he wasn't alone in his bed. He was on his back and felt the warmth of a body pressed up against his and looked down, and he couldn't help but smile. There was Anko sleeping snuggled up to him and using his shoulder to sleep on. He remembered last night and couldn't stop his smile getting larger. Last night had been the best night he had in a long time. The date had been very nice, and then last night's activities was more enjoyable than he thought. He looked to see her hair was down for once and how it framed her face. She looked a lot better with her hair down like this. With his free hand he drew it up and slowly moved aside a strand of hair in her face. She looked so much peaceful asleep, and he didn't want to wake her, so he just looked at her, memorizing her face at this moment. She sighed as she tried to snuggle closer to him, making him smirk. She was totally different in this moment. She seemed too soft and open like this. There were no masks put in place. He felt like he could see the real her, and he liked what he saw. Eventually he realized they would need to get up. In fact, he really needed to pee at this moment, and gently shook her shoulder. Anko, time to wake up, he said. 5 more minutes, she muttered. Come on, we need to get up. We can't spend all day in bed, he told her. Why not? He had to think of an answer, as besides his bathroom need, he would rather spend the day in bed like this. Naruto will be up soon, and when he sees us, I'd rather not come looking for me to find us like this. Although the mental scaring of this image would be pretty funny in Anko's opinion, she knew that he had a point. She slowly pushed herself up and stretched out, yawning. She noticed Kakashi staring at her, and she smirked at him, going into a more sensual pose. Like what you see. Kakashi really could see this being a scene from one of his favorite books. Hell, Anko could be a star in a movie about them. Although on second thought, he liked the idea of having her and her naked glory all to his own. Well, can't say I can see anything to complain about. You got that right. Anko smiled at him, and then she got a more serious face on. Say, about last night. It wasn't a one-time thing, was it? Kakashi blinked in confusion. Did this mean that she was changing her mind about this? He thought that they wouldn't have any regrets about last night, but then again there was a bit of drinking, but nothing too bad. He was surprised at himself how the thought of her wanting nothing more than just maybe friendship made him feel. The truth was, he was actually looking forward to this. He couldn't remember ever feeling like that with another woman before. Anko was a little nervous when Kakashi didn't say anything. She wasn't looking at him and felt the bed shift. Then she felt those strong arms wrap around her body and his head nestled into her shoulder. It felt nice being held like this. In fact, she never remembered anyone actually just holding her. To tell you the truth, I don't want it to be just a one-time thing, he told her. Well, I want to try things out with you, that is, if you want to. Anko gave herself a small smile as she twisted around and planted a soft kiss on his lips for her answer. Naruto. Naruto wasn't sure where he was. It was night and he looked around as he seemed to be in a wooded area, but he didn't know it. He wasn't sure how long he had been walking, but he just walked on. Then he heard the water and went towards it, hoping to find something. By the time the forest opened up, he saw a large lake. There wasn't anything special about the area, but then there was a lot of bubbling from the center of the lake. He got himself ready into a fight stance and waited, but what rose up only confused the genin. He thought it was going to be some ninja or maybe a lake monster or something. Instead, it looked like a large bowl of ramen with a cap on the top. Naruto blinked in confusion, wondering what was going on. Then the top of it opened up. He was greeted to the sight of warm ramen in very large quantities, but what he really noticed was that on a piece of Naruto, the ramen, sat Hinata. Only she was sitting on it with her legs under her in a sexy-like pose. He also noticed that instead of her usual clothing, all she had on was her large baggy coat. Hinata-chan. Naruto finally spoke out, blushing. Hello, Naruto-kun, Hinata said without her stutter and in a seductive voice. He never knew that Hinata could sound so hot. She giggled at him as she gave him a heated look. So would you like a bite to eat, Naruto? I'm. Naruto's brain pretty much shut down at how she playfully said his name. Or would you like something else? Hinata giggled again as her hand went to her zipper and started to slowly pull it down. Naruto couldn't stop watching as it seemed to take forever for it to go down. It was opened up and her hands went to the edges of the opening. Then a suddenly loud noise of his alarm clock went off, not only scaring him out of the dream but causing him to hit the floor. God damn it. Naruto muttered into his floor. The best dream in his life, and his stupid alarm clock woke him up just before the good part. He glared at the offending machine, wondering how to destroy the evil machine. Naruto eventually got up and turned it off, feeling groggy as usual when he woke up. He left his room to go to the bathroom, but he heard his dad in the kitchen and he could smell breakfast. Seeing all that ramen had made him hungry, so he went to eat first, then bathroom later. He was still feeling sleepy as he walked into the kitchen and sit into his usual chair. Morning, he said absently. Hey there, Anko said, cooking some eggs. You want some eggs today? Yeah, sure, thanks Auntie Anko, Naruto said, rubbing his eyes slowly. Anko grinned, knowing that it took Naruto a bit to fully wake up. She decided not to hide her new relationship with Kakashi from him, but this was proving to be a very fun way of him finding out. She mentally counted down in her mind as she waited for his brain to process things. Naruto froze in mid-movement when he suddenly realized that Anko was there. And not only was she there, her hair was down and she was wearing only a very large shirt, one of his dad's shirts actually. She looked like she had slept here in fact. What the hell? Naruto shouted out, pointing at her. What are you doing here so early and dressed like that? Doing here early? Anko asked him like she didn't understand. I've been here since last night. So, you stayed the night on the couch. Naruto hoped he was right because there was only one answer for that. Morning, Kakashi said in a pair of pants with a towel over his shoulders. He had just gotten out of the shower and noticed the scene in the kitchen. He sighed. He had seen this coming, and knowing Anko, she was going to yank Naruto's chain as much as she could. Morning, Kashi-kun, Anko winked at him. Kakashi blinked at the pet name and then noticed Naruto looking at him with shock. He scratched the back of his head, knowing what was going on in his son's mind. So he decided to join in on the fun, mainly since Naruto not once called him sensei and all the other trouble he had caused that he never got back at him for. Morning, Anko-chan, Kakashi went over and kissed her on the cheek. Smells good. Hey, I can cook too, you know, she sent a mock glare at him. So said I was talking about the food, he said in a more seductive tone as Anko felt a kiss on her neck. She grinned at just how evil he could be and she wished she could see Naruto's face for the moment. What the hell is going on? Naruto screamed out. When did this happen? How long was I asleep? Both Anko and Kakashi gave a small laugh as Kakashi sat down with his son to explain things to him. Naruto, last night I went on a first date with Anko and we liked it. We also like each other and we decided to try things out. So as of now, Anko and myself are dating and I really want you to be okay with this. Naruto thought about this. He was used to his dad being single, but he knew it wasn't fair of him to want him not to date. He also knew it wouldn't be right since he just started to date Hinata and he goes and tells his dad that he doesn't want him to date. He also thought about Anko. To him she was the closest thing to an aunt that he had, but what would happen if she was now his dad's girlfriend? He didn't want things to get weird, but then again he couldn't really think of anyone he would be more comfortable with his dad either. Anko was fun to have around at times and she did pretty much help to raise him with his dad over the years. In a strange way his family was staying the same, it was just getting a new twist to it. He looked up at his dad with a smile. Yeah, I'm okay with it. Kakashi chuckled as he messed up his son's hair. The three of them sat down to breakfast as Anko pressed him for details on his own first date. She had to admit it was fun watching him blush when he talked about Hinata. Meanwhile, Kakashi was sitting back at the site, the two of them talking over breakfast like it was the most common thing in the world. He smiled to himself at how it felt right in some strange way, and he was wondering why he never tried this before. At any rate, Naruto managed to get first dips on the bathroom, much to Anko's annoyance, especially since he said she would take forever in there. He would have to patch up the hole in the wall from the cup she threw at him later for that remark. When Naruto came back, Anko and Kakashi were still at the table talking and laughing about something. He gave a small smile at the scene. They really did look good together and he couldn't remember the last time he had seen them both happy. Well, I'm going to go see if Sasuke wants to train, Naruto said as he went to the door. Alright then, Kakashi said to him. See ya shorty, Anko said to him, knowing he hated the mention of his lack of height. Naruto got an evil grin as he waited for Anko to take another sip of her coffee. See you later too, San. Ka-san. Anko chopped on her coffee at being called Mom by Naruto. Barker. Don't call me that yet, we've only starting dating. Anko yelled at Naruto's laughing form. She turned to glare at Kakashi, who was chuckling to himself on her reaction. Sasuke, Naruto. The sounds of metal on metal rang through the open area of the Uchiha compound. They're in an area set aside for clan training where Naruto and Sasuke training in with their swords. Sasuke was determined to become the better swordsman, but Naruto had years worth of training on him by Kakashi. But that didn't stop him from trying. In fact, he was gaining in skill from Teases' little sparring sessions against Naruto. Sasuke learned something new from every match and he was slowly getting used to Naruto's style. Although it was hard to totally get used to it, Naruto liked to improvise and usually came up with either unique moves, or moves that were suicidal, but he pulled them off anyway. At times he wasn't sure if his friend either didn't care if he got hurt or had a death wish. It was another thing that Sasuke had come to realize was that Naruto was his friend, his only true friend actually. Sure, he thought the masked blonde as annoying and at times an idiot. But no one else pushed him like Naruto did, and he had come to have something close to respect for his skills. In fact, Sasuke started to look forward to their spars. Naruto was the only real challenge, and every time he beat him it felt like he had accomplished something. But not today. Even though Sasuke's katana was longer than Naruto's sword, Naruto was good in keeping out of Sasuke's reach and yet getting in closer for counter-attacks. But Naruto was slow to react today. In fact, he was sure that Naruto's mind wasn't even on the spar, and this annoyed him. When Sasuke's blade came too close to cutting Naruto, Sasuke stepped back and lowered his sword as a way to say that the spar was over. Naruto blinked in confusion. Hey, what's the deal? We're done. What? I was just getting into it. Sasuke gave a small grunt and turned and walked to the nearby bench. You're distracted. I nearly cut you with that last move, and it's not the first time. You're too slow, and if your mind isn't on this, then you'll make a mistake that will either injure yourself or me. Naruto remembered all the lessons that his dad put him through, and the first lesson was, never lose your focus. If he had so much had wavered, his dad would give him a good hit on the head with their wooden swords to get his mind back into it. Naruto still felt he had lost a few good brain cells from that, but his father had refused to let him train with metal weapons until he could show focus. Naruto now felt like a kid again. He knew that his mind wasn't on the fight. He didn't mean for it to happen, but after everything that was going on with his life, he just couldn't help it. Naruto sighed and walked over to Sasuke as both boys went about cleaning their blades and checking them over for any damage. Both were silent for a moment before Naruto decided to speak up. Sorry, he simply said, and Sasuke just nodded. A lot's been on my mind today. Sasuke gave a small grunt of a laugh. That's new. What is it? Is Konoha suffering from a ramen shortage? Don't ever joke about that. Naruto said, horrified. That had actually happened once when he had been 10. A merchant group headed to the village had been attacked and many goods had been lost. Naruto had gone without ramen for a week before the replacements could arrive. That had been the most horrible and longest week of his life, and he never wanted to go through that again. It's just that, well, Naruto said, blushing under his mask. I went out on a date with Hinata-chan yesterday. So you finally did it, Sasuke said, and then seemed to be thinking on something. Damn it, you couldn't have waited another week. What do you mean by that? Sasuke sighed. I had a bet placed for next week as you would finally get together. What the hell? Did everyone know about her liking me but me? Naruto shouted at him. And how come you betted? I thought you wouldn't be into it. Sasuke shrugged. I figured being on your team would give me a good idea of when it would happen. As for the first question, I think there are people in Suna who know about you and Hinata. Naruto's head fell at that. Did everyone really had known that Hinata had liked him? Plus, why didn't anyone tell him that? He already felt like an idiot as he had been looking back at his life and the signs had all been there. Naruto had just thought that was how Hinata was, some best friend he was. Well, at any rate, it's about time, Sasuke said, looking at his sword. That girl has been crushing on you since I saw you two together at the academy. Naruto winced again at yet another reminder of his blindness. Yeah, I think I should make it up to her. I mean, I want to show her a really good time. Hey, do you have any advice for dating a girl? Sasuke gave him a level look. Why would I know anything about dating? Naruto blinked in confusion, but when we first met Fuzzy Brows, Neji and Tenten, Sakura-chan said that you two were dating. Sasuke gave Naruto a look that said, "What are you, a moron?" before he realized who he was talking to. The Uchiha sighed. He just couldn't understand how Naruto was smart in some things and yet totally clueless with others. He explained how Sakura had asked him for a favor as she didn't want to hurt Lee's feelings at the time with a rejection. He then told him about the deal that Sakura would stop asking for dates. So far she had done just that. It wasn't that Sasuke didn't like her, it was just that he liked her better when she wasn't annoying him every day for a date. At least she was focusing on her ninja training like a real ninja, and he did consider her a friend, but that had only been recently. She had proved to him after Wave that she could be a good ninja one day. But as an Uchiha he needed someone that would be good for his clan. Naruto took all this in and frowned a bit. He had thought that Sakura had picked Sasuke over him. Although he was glad he hadn't lost, if that hadn't had happened then he would most likely be still thinking of Sakura as more than a friend. But he was dating Hinata now because of how things turned out and he was happy with it. He felt bad for Sakura though. He knew that she must still like Sasuke, but to agree to that deal must have killed her inside. So you don't like Sakura-chan because she's not strong enough? Naruto asked the dark-haired boy. I just prefer more mature women, Sasuke told him. I want someone that is sure of themselves, a strong woman, and above all someone I can respect. Sakura was just another of those damn fangirls for too many years. She's grown, but unless she grows up I can't see myself with her. Naruto thought about it and grunted in frustration. He wanted to help Sakura, but if she wasn't to his taste it couldn't be helped. Then what kind of girl do you like? I mean, I haven't seen you even look at a girl seriously. How do you plan to revive your clan then? Sasuke gave him a sharp look as he wasn't sure it was any business of Naruto's, but after a few seconds he figured he might as well. Knowing him, the masked boy wouldn't give up. I prefer girls like that Tenten girl, Sasuke said to him. Or at last she's the only one that is interesting. She takes the life of a ninja seriously and keeps training herself to be stronger. She's confident and also doesn't turn into a fangirl around me. Naruto guessed he could see that, although he knew something else. You do know that I think Neji has a thing for her, right? He hasn't made a move, so it's fair game, Sasuke said bluntly. Plus there was a little perverse pleasure in beating the Hyuga prodigy. The Uchiha and Hyuga had been bitter rivals ever since the Hyuga joined the village after the Uchiha had helped form it with the Senju clan. He saw Neji as a rival and he was determined to show that the Uchiha clan was still better by beating him. They continued on as they moved to sharpening the blade, and after 10 minutes Naruto had to tell someone else what he had found out that morning. I also found out my dad is dating. Seriously? Sasuke asked, wondering who would date Kakashi Hatake. The guy had those perverted books, was never on time and was lazy. How such a legendary status he had no idea. He was wondering how much it was thanks to the eye that Obito Uchiha had given him. Naruto nodded his head. Yeah. They had sex last night too. Naruto was thankful the rooms had thick walls, he wasn't close to his dad's room, and that he slept like a rock. The last thing he needed to know was if his aunt was a moaner or a screamer. The thought of them naked just sent shivers through his body. Even if Anko was pretty, she was still family to him. Dating he could handle, but no kid wants to know when one of his parents gets laid. Sasuke wasn't sure to laugh at his misfortune or cringe in sympathy. It gets better too, Naruto sighed. Remember my aunt Anko? That crazy purple-haired woman? He asked Naruto, who nodded. Yeah, what about her? She's the one who my dad is dating. Sasuke blinked a few times. He remembered Anko from her training Sakura in the use of her tonfas, and the woman was a bit scary. He looked at Naruto and considered what that would mean for him. I feel sorry for your future. Gee, thanks you bastard, Naruto glared at him. Anytime, idiot, Sasuke said with a ghost of a smirk on his face. Later, Anko was smiling to herself as she walked down the streets of the village. After showering at Kakashi's place, she went home to change into her clothing. Apparently she also had found a summons at her place to show up to the Hokage Tower when she could. The meeting hadn't been what she expected, as she was now slotted to oversee the second part of the Chunin exams. She had forgotten about those exams, but at least she was being given a fun part. She really didn't want to run the first part of the exam, and the last was just being a referee, which was boring. At least with the survival trail she could see some more interesting things. She would have to look over the forest of death soon to make sure it was ready. Although there wasn't much to look over, but you never knew what you'd find. Sometimes teams would leave traps just laying around, although that was perfectly legal. It wouldn't do for them to just lay around. Plus there had been that one year one of the wildlife had chewed through the gate and a bunch of genins had nearly been eaten before they got to the gate. But that was something else to worry about. Right now she was happy and she wanted to stay that way. She sighed as she thought about things. Anko could never remember feeling this happy. She stopped as they looked at her reflection in a window and thought of how Kakashi said he liked how she looked with her hair down. I wonder, would it be a good idea to change my hair? Anko thought about it. Although it meant less time on her hair, she liked having it up as it was more practical. Pulling on hair was a very dirty and well-used trick in fighting. Maybe for when I'm off work then. It felt a little strange, her changing a little something like her hair just to please someone else. She remembered that if she ever seriously considered dating someone, she wouldn't change at all. She shook her head at that, but at least Kakashi wasn't asking her to change who she was. If he had, then she would give him holy hell for it, but she had a feeling he would never do anything like that. When she first met him, she thought him an odd one, but over the years she learned to really respect him. He took in a child at such a young age and raised him as best he could. Plus his skills were amazing in the field, and despite his oddities he was a pretty decent guy. He's also gorgeous under that mask, Anko smirked to herself. Oh yes, she had seen up close and personal the mysterious Kakashi face, and it was all hers now. Anko, there you are. Anko turned surprised to see Kurenai walking towards her. Then she remembered that she was to tell Kurenai everything on her date last night. It was too late to fake not hearing her and sneaking off, plus she had been stupid enough to make eye contact. It wasn't that she was embarrassed, she just wasn't into the girly stuff like Kurenai was. Oh hey there, Anko said as her best friend got close enough. What's up? Nothing much, Kurenai said, giving Anko a bit of hope she wasn't going to ask. So how was last night? Damn. Stupid hope. Anko thought darkly. Oh, it was good, you know the usual stuff, Anko said to her. Kurenai gave her a level look. After all the time she had spent listening to Anko go on and on about Kakashi, borrowing her stuff for that date, and she knew that Anko had manipulated events at that lake with Asuma. Anko was not getting off with just a simple explanation. This resulted in Kurenai literally dragging her away to Anko's favorite dango shop. If there was anything that would loosen her tongue, Kurenai knew it was Anko's sweet tooth with a bribe of free dango and her own persuasive means. If Anko knew that Kurenai could be such a manipulative woman, she would have asked her to join the interrogation and torture department. So after about 10 minutes of prying it out of her, Anko finally gave in. It wasn't that she was embarrassed, she was just kind of a private person at times. She was comfortable with this and she didn't want it to turn into a big deal. So Anko told Kurenai about the date. Well, it seems like you have a good time, Kurenai said, sipping some tea she had ordered. I'm amazed he kept the mask on even during dinner. Tell me about it, I'm not sure what I spent more time on. Trying to catch him eating or talking, Anko smiled. She knew that it was just a little game of Kakashi's to make people try and catch him without the mask. He had been wearing it for so long she knew that only a handful of people must know what he looked like. It was also fun giving Naruto a little scare in the morning, Anko chuckled. In the morning? Kurenai asked. Anko had ended her story just before they got back to his place, so she had no way of knowing what Anko was talking about. This gave the purple-haired ninja a grin on the inside as a way of having her own little fun. Yeah, he walked in on me with just my panties and a shirt, Anko said with a shrug, like it was nothing out of the ordinary. Why did he walk in on you like that? Kurenai asked, shocked. Well, I did spend the night. Anko rolled her eyes like it had been a dumb question. Kurenai's eyes widened at that. She had no idea that things had gone that far. You mean that you and Kakashi? Horizontal tango. The beast with two backs. Getting hot and heavy. Rolling in the hay. Anko. Kurenai said, blushing a bit. Oh come on, you have to lighten up, it's just sex. You are an adult, right? Anko asked the older woman. She never understood how Kurenai could be so prude when it came to sex at times. Her friend needed to loosen up at some point, especially if Kurenai ever expected to get anywhere with Asuma with an attitude like that. At this rate it would take years for them to get together if neither of them started to grow a spine and just ask the other out. It's just I'm not comfortable with thinking of Kakashi like that, Kurenai said to Anko. Kakashi was a friend and she really wasn't that interested in the sex lives of her friends. Oh really? Anko grinned, leaning forward. You'd be amazed at what's under all that ninja gear. If you think he had a good body in a swimsuit, you should see what he's got under it. Kurenai blushed even more at the lewd insinuation. Anko. You know, I wonder if Asuma can measure up. I mean, damn, last night was amazing. But I doubt anyone is as good as Kakashi-kun. Anko sighed happily while noticing the growing look on Kurenai's face. It was subtle, but knowing her so well she could see the other woman fighting to keep her emotions off her face. Anko had just basically insulted Asuma and now Kurenai was wrestling with defending him or not. Anko decided to push it just a bit more. But then again, I've seen Asuma's body and there isn't anything special that I can see. Now Kurenai was getting angry. I'll have you know that I think he has a great body, Kurenai said with her anger tightly controlled. Whose body is great? Kurenai froze as she paled at that voice. She slowly turned to see none other than Asuma right behind her, looking at her curiously. A snicker from Anko and Kurenai turned angrily over to her friend. Anko had seen Asuma walking close by and thought this was the perfect opportunity to have some really good fun. Kurenai's face when she heard Asuma's voice was priceless. Oh, how she wished she had a camera at that point. Maybe today was going to be a good day after all, as she watched Kurenai trying to talk herself out of what she had just said out loud. Anko sat back eating on her dango, watching a blushing Kurenai and a confused Asuma. Our dinner and a show, Anko chuckled to herself. Too bad Kakashi isn't here, he would love this just as much. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.